There's no multiplayer game mode out there quite like Watchdogs tailing. Simplistic in its concept, but a multiplayer component of Ubisoft's Watch Dogs 1 that has yet to be replicated in any other game, or any other Watch Dogs game for that matter. The rules are simple. At any point while playing Watch Dogs, you the player can initiate a tailing contract. Upon accepting, you will be nearly instantaneously transported into another player's open world session. This player will not know you've entered their lobby, and there's no direct notification to them that they've entered a multiplayer experience. You, the player, are simply inhabiting their world as a seemingly harmless NPC, and the feeling is uniquely empowering. Tailing is a rather straightforward task on paper, but one that the living, breathing city of Chicago complicates with its twisting streets, narrow alleyways, and varied architecture.
Oh no!
He bumped right into me.
Don't sweat the technique.
The window of opportunity to tail someone is often a small one, and the stalker will have to capitalize on a limited time frame. Typically, a player is able to be tailed while on their way to a mission objective or during their concentrated efforts to unlock one of the many C2S towers littered across the city. But once the host enters a mission objective, the tail is lost and the multiplayer session is disconnected, and the intel gathered will only be a fraction of what it would have been had the tailer been able to complete the entire operation. Percentage builds slowly if observing from a distance, but can accelerate rapidly the more bold the tail. If a tracker is brave or stupid enough to get right up on the target, a tail can be completed within roughly 20 to 30 seconds. This is ideal if a player wants to get in and out. But to me, there's something so fascinating about observing another player in their world without them knowing. There's a thrill in the role-playing of a standard NPC, mimicking their routines, avoiding the player's gaze, and avoiding any attention-drawing actions. It's a true social stealth sim that not even the Assassin's Creed games that Ubisoft has boasted this very concept managed to replicate, and the simplicity of its format is made all the more satisfying by what the unpredictable variables that another player brings to the experience. And the best part? It isn't invasive to their experience at all. Unlike invasions in a Souls game, the player has nothing to lose by you, the watcher, being there. But in the world of Watch Dogs, being the surveyor and not the subject is integral to your strength as a hacker. As you take on more targets, you'll garner more and more experience and rise on a leaderboard. With this success comes harder to follow targets. And here's where things get complicated. Experienced players in Watch Dogs have certain security measures that they frequently check in order to ensure their lobby isn't being visited by unwanted eyes. This can be done by simply activating the focus mode, which typically slows time to a crawl for a more reaction-based action. If the player hits focus mode, however, and the game continues to move in real time, it means you aren't alone in the city of Chicago, and someone's watching you. It's an eerie feeling, and alarm bells can begin to sound once you're aware. Another way to test if a player is in your lobby is to simply pause the game. If the game pauses, you're alone. And if it doesn't, well...
Oh man! This one's dedicated to all the hackers.
The thrill of following a suspicious player is somewhat more intense and unique than following the oblivious. Skilled watchdogs have specific go-to countermeasures to check for a tail. The tried and true? Driving like a bat out of hell. Accelerating to a speed that causes the tail to have to drive recklessly in pursuit, and it puts the observed player in control. They can check their rearview mirrors for any vehicles performing overtakes, or slam on the brakes suddenly to see if a tailing vehicle does the same. Traffic-based tailing has got to be some of the most immersive multiplayer I've ever experienced, emulating the stakeout-like nature of waiting on prey. They might park their car and go into a shop to buy ammunition while you rack up their gradual percentage, or they might get into a shootout with the police and you have to tail the black and white while avoiding any of the various death traps that the hackers can deploy due to the city's vulnerable CTOS infrastructure. It's fucking exciting, and I found myself diving right back in over and over all weekend long. There were even some moments where I invaded games of hackers specifically looking for people to invade them. These players had a strange behavior about them, typically focusing their navigation on narrow bridges with very accessible sightlines, or perching atop high buildings to look for anyone who might be trying to access their back door. I found almost all of these scenarios to be more like fun puzzles than typical multiplayer cheese, and if I ever found out that their tactic was impenetrable, I could simply back out of the lobby at no cost to myself. The riskiest part of the trailing process has got to be the handshake, getting direct eyes on the target. Doing this the quickest way is hazardous, walking near the player with your phone out and scanning their face. Most NPCs aren't typically walking and looking at their phones, and for experienced players, this is a dead giveaway. Try using your phone when you're out of sight, or only do it when you know they're distracted. The safer way to initiate a hack is to use the camera network. Hacking into a camera can be a bit tricky because you have to let your guard down in order to look up at one of the many hundreds of skyscrapers across the city. But once inside the network, you can ping between cameras that cover great distances. This allows you to initiate the handshake much more safely, and much more efficiently. If you can complete the entire observation process in this way, do it. But chances are, a hacker's never staying in the sightlines of a specific camera for long, and you'll have to jump between resources while also staying aware of your actual individual body to avoid detection.
A surveillance camera?
So what's the punishment for getting caught anyway? Well, as a tail, you have to take bold risks to close the gap with you and your subject, and they're equipped with a dangerous tool: their phone. This thing is locked into the CTOS grid, and it's capable of performing near instantaneous facial recognition scanning. So if a player chooses to look your direction while scanning, you're going to get pinged as a hacker. Hello. And they're free to hunt you down. As a tail, you cannot kill the subject. You're discouraged, in fact, and it defeats the purpose of gathering the intel on them in general. If you get spotted, you've already failed your task, and the most you can do is get out of the situation alive. But once you've been made, you have to haul ass to a vehicle and get as far away from their search grid as possible. They can shoot at you, disrupt traffic lights to have cars hit you, destroy gas lines beneath the city streets to total your car, lift up barricades to bring you to a halt, or raise the city bridges to cut off your escape routes. If possible, a chase should never go on for longer than 25 seconds. And vehicles are usually a scramble for whatever's close, so you'd better pay attention to what sports cars or motorbikes you have in your vicinity if you feel like things are getting hot. But even if you do get away and disconnect safely back to your own lobby, you've been made, and now that very hacker that spotted you can be invited to perform a retaliatory hack or even set a bounty out where other players will come to invade you and recover whatever data you might have taken from them. You'll be on the defensive now, and you've got to prepare to protect your own data. NPCs don't drive motorcycles, so he knows that I'm following him. Right towards us, we're going to gather this data, then we're going to kite him a little bit longer. So I'm actually just snail trailing his data right now. This song was called Aerosol Can by Major Lazer and I believe Pharrell. Not sure who the other person is. He's literally getting kited. Bro, please. You have way too many other NPCs to scan and you're running in a straight line. Make me come to you. He's so silly. You got snail trailed. It's truly amazing that this many years later, the tailing multiplayer game mode can still provide such a rewarding moment-to-moment experience. And one that I'm surprised Ubisoft hasn't tackled again. The close calls, the shenanigans, the thrill of that chase are all unique that I'm surprised the concept was never taken further throughout the franchise. The reason why it works so well in Watchdogs specifically is because players don't expect it to happen while they're going out and completing other focus-driven tasks. If they were always prepared, it would defeat the purpose. The overall satisfaction of a tailing operation executed successfully is incredibly addicting. And the moment one mission ends, it's very simple to queue up another one and jump right back into it. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching.
Open up the safe, bitches got a lot to say. To see in your face, that'll put you in your place.